Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to the Arcmoon channel. Today, we'll be discussing Hobbesian philosophy as it's represented in the Naruto franchise through some of its major characters, Pain, Itachi, and Sasuke. This video will contain spoilers for all of Naruto, Naruto Shippuden, and some of the supplementary novels, so please be warned and proceed at your own discretion. First off, for context, let me briefly describe British philosopher Thomas Hobbes' views on humanity and government as he depicts it in his book Leviathan, or the matter, form, and power of a commonwealth, ecclesiastical and civil. First, Hobbes describes the state of nature, or the natural state humans exist in without organized government or authority, is just war, or to use one's own power to attain a particular desire. He believes that humans are generally selfish and seek particular goods in a hierarchical order. He thinks that first a human will seek safety and survival, next they will seek comfort, lastly they will seek honor and glory. In this view, you are free to do as you please and have no obligation to anyone. He claims this is a natural right. His solution is the Leviathan. The Leviathan is a government structure that is singularly powerful enough to suppress any dissonant entity. This way, if one chooses to buy into the system by giving up their natural right, they can ensure at least survival, the foremost desired good. The Leviathan enforces contracts or intrapersonal agreements to ensure that betrayal and killing do not transpire. Later in the video, I will share my critiques of this particular argument. Hobbes' moral system is such that good and bad values originate from how individuals feel, which allows for inconsistency between individuals and is more subjective rather than principles that are just innately moral. Hobbes' view towards humanity is generally paradigm negative and his perspective is empirical. Now, to get into the Naruto characters, Uzumaki Nagato, or Pain, is the leader of the missing nin organization, the Akatsuki. Under Pain, the Akatsuki is in search of the Jinchuriki of the Bijou, or the human containers for the nine-tailed beasts, in hopes of creating a superstructure to end the cycle of hatred. Pain says the cycle of hatred arises in war, or in human relations where one person hurts another only for revenge to necessarily be returned. For example, if a rock shinobi killed a leaf shinobi, the comrades of the leaf shinobi will kill that rock shinobi and his platoon. This cycle perpetuates indefinitely. This is similar to a concept brought up in another show I'm excited to talk about in another video, Kenichi History's Midas Disciple, where one of the masters states that Shirahama Kenichi will always have to fight new opponents since he's entered the cycle by beating his first opponent Daimonji. Anyways, although Pain is not totally clear about this, for the cycle to start, the natural state of shinobi must be to harm others in an out-group. The in-group out-group distinction, where those who you consider your friends and those your enemies, is arguably an extension of yourself. You may desire good things for people you care about because of that care, so it actually relates to yourself. So like Hobbes, Pain believes that humans naturally harbor immense selfishness and act on both anger and impulsive desire that only furthers destruction. His solution is to amass an unstoppable power by collecting the Bijou and conquering the shinobi world to quell any insurgency and end all war, effectively stopping the cycle of hatred. So just like the Leviathan, the tailed beast would give him the capacity to enforce his rule in the name of peace and non-violence. To discuss the moral system Pain uses to justify his actions, one can either classify him as a Hobbesian or maybe even a utilitarian. If he sides more with Hobbes, then you can say that he doesn't believe in inherently good principles that he needed to abide by, and that he does what he wants in order to service his emotions. What I mean by that is how he was emotionally perturbed growing up in the midst of war. Having both his parents killed, he was left alone with a potent mental burden. Using this argument, the mental burden is just a level of empathy that guides him, urging him to make it so that people of the future don't have to suffer as he did. So in this view, what he is doing isn't actually moral, but rather just what he wants, his natural right. In the other view, he is a utilitarian, or someone who justifies his actions by benefiting more people than not. In this view, his killing of the Jinchuriki hosts of the tailed beasts and the casualties caused in the battles to attain the Jinchuriki are justified if more people are saved from the ending of the cycle of hatred in the long term. Now Pain's rhetoric and the use of the word justice imply that he thinks he is moral, so I'm hedging more toward the utilitarian morality for how he views himself, but in my view, I think the first option may still be valid for the psychological reason for his actions. This is made harder when considering that Hobbes uses the word justice to roughly mean upholding contracts in a legal sense and is completely devoid of any moral value, so deciding which system to ascribe to pain is still very difficult. I'm planning to make a much more in-depth video later critiquing the principle of utility as described by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, as well as some characters that exhibit this kind of philosophy, and also to offer my critiques of the doctrine at a later time. Moving on to Uchiha Itachi, young Itachi, after being scarred by the Third Great Ninja War, which his father made him bear witness to, grew an intense hatred for violence. Although Itachi's opinion changes throughout the course of the series, specifically after he's reanimated by Kabuto, for a period in his early life he wanted to grow as a shinobi to become the Leviathan himself. Itachi trained frantically with his best friend Uchiha Shisui, pushing himself to his limit. In the Itachi Daylight novel, during an academy exercise, Itachi, being a prodigy, completes a particular task in 30 seconds, whereas the rest of the students take 5 entire minutes. Still, Itachi is angry at himself for, in his opinion, subpar performance. He wanted to be a powerful enough shinobi to change the world as the Hokage, which is something most fans of the series overlook. Additionally, during his academy classes, he'd send a Kagebunshin, or shadow clone, to class, while he'd be training in the woods or studying on his own from books. He dedicated all of his time to rising up the ranks of shinobi to further his goal, like when he had to take the Chunin exams without a team. To clarify his goal, he sought sufficient power to annihilate all violence in the shinobi world. This is the same type of thinking Pain had done before. In the utilitarian video I hinted at before, I'm going to delve much deeper into Itachi's character, plus another character from a different series who I'll leave as a surprise. So before I get into the flaws of this type of thinking, I want to talk about one last character, Uchiha Sasuke. Even after Itachi realized the flaws of his philosophy, after enduring numerous failures, as he says once he's been reanimated and beaten Kabuto, and after Nagato had fallen victim to Talk no Jutsu from Naruto, Sasuke still decides to adopt this philosophy after talking to the previous 4 Hokage, and then finally defeating Kaguya at the end of the 4th Great Shinobi War. In Sasuke's final confrontation with Naruto in the Valley of the End, he declares his grandiose plan that he would enact after killing Naruto. First, to kill the Gokage and the Biju so the world can have a clean slate. Then, he would take on the hatred of the entire world, as he would then be the strongest on the planet, and rule through fear and power so that no more violence or misdeeds can be done unto any person or party, like how it was done to the Uchiha clan and Itachi by the village elders, Danzo, and the 3rd Hokage. Sasuke is willing to bear the fear and darkness that would be thrust forth to the Leviathan, and end all violence and the freedom to breach contracts like he believes all humans would without his presence. So I will now list my critiques of this particular view of Hobbes, and then I will detail the inverse response other characters had in opposition to Itachi, Sasuke, and Pain. First of all, the biggest problem with Hobbes' Leviathan is that the only way for complete predictability and security is for everyone in the society to be checked or for the rules to be enforced on. As nobody has the power to check the Leviathan, total safety and predictability will necessarily evade them. This is because, once again, in Hobbes' analysis, there is the hierarchy of things a person will try to obtain. The first is safety, the second is comfort, and the third, glory. The civilians of the society have to sacrifice the third, or in some cases the second, and the third to ensure their safety by submitting to the Leviathan. However, the Leviathan will have the first 2 things and will then pursue glory, which in Hobbes' definition seems to require the harm of others. This actually ensures that the Leviathan will be corrupt, thus the warring state of nature will not stop, but rather will continue with a skew of benefit and ease toward the Leviathan itself. The other thing that Hobbes seems to forget, at least in his writing, is that it would be exceedingly difficult for the Leviathan to be chosen. The characters I spoke about from the Naruto series deal with this problem, but in the case of Hobbes, the question is still unanswered. How would a Leviathan be chosen when in Hobbes' belief all people's capacity to get what they desire are comparable? There would be a bunch of people vying for the position and nobody would yield their natural right to someone they saw unfit, which would be basically everyone other than themselves and arguably a friend if they have a more passive personality. This would be chaos. Now, there is an explanatory theory to answer this, but it is unconfirmed as of now. Some people believe that this was actually Hobbes' defense of the British monarchy rather than a new solution. The reason the Naruto characters don't have this particular issue, though, is because in the shinobi world, unlike Hobbes', their capacity of power is not the same nor comparable. For example, it is extremely rare to be gifted a pair of Rinnegan like Pain, or to be the reincarnation of Indra and be given 6 paths 6 Tomoe Rinnegan and possess the EMS like Sasuke, or to be considered a once-in-a-generation prodigy like Itachi, unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan at 12. The gaps in competence are massive in the world of Naruto. For example, the world of Hobbes postulates most can accomplish similar things no matter what part of the skill distribution one falls onto. In Naruto, however, those who are particularly skilled or who have worked to gain a great level of power are so far beyond the mean that someone like Naruto, right before his 17th birthday, could gift everyone that remained alive in the Shinobi Alliance 3 times the amount of chakra that Kakashi had. Kakashi being a Kage-level prodigy. People like the 4th Hokage Minato were powerful enough to kill 1,000 enemy shinobi during a war single-handedly. So in this world, all it takes is power to force others to submit to your will. Now this might apply to groups in Hobbes' world, but it's arguable if stable groups could actually form with his strict presuppositions on the state of nature. Sasuke, Pain, and Itachi all have realized that they must fight and conquer people in order to attain their goals of getting unwilling people to relinquish their total liberty, whereas Hobbes seems to skip over the first step to attaining this form of government. The last topic I wanted to cover was the inverse response to each of these characters' ideologies. In the case of Sasuke, during his final battle with Naruto, Naruto asks him, "If you will be the sole bearer of darkness, who will replace you when you're gone?" As the fight goes on, Sasuke fails to seriously contend with this logical issue. There was no way for him to pass on his power to a predecessor, as if that person gained enough power to be the next Leviathan, then Sasuke would no longer have ultimate control, which would demolish the entire system that requires that nobody can be equivalent in power to Sasuke. Additionally, Uchiha Madara, who also held a similar belief to Sasuke, thought that he would need to shape the world alone through his own power, admits right before his death to Hashirama that he has failed as he had no one to continue his dream. In the case of Itachi, Itachi himself was the one to realize his failure. He came to understand that his deceptions and the massacre of the Uchiha clan were not ideal strategies. He tells Naruto, as a reanimation, not to take on the world alone. Itachi came to understand that someone seeking to be the Leviathan is arrogant in assuming that they will have the physical power to suppress all chaos and the power to totally resist corruption. He says something like this to Kid Sasuke while sitting outside his house. This second part is specifically implied when he admits to Sasuke after the Kabuto fight that he regrets lying and that if he told the truth, maybe there would have been another way to stop the coup d'etat being planned by the Uchiha clan. He tells Naruto that to be Hokage, one must be acknowledged first, rather than becoming the Hokage to gain acknowledgement. This basically means that gaining political power through force is generally a short-sighted strategy, and gaining the favor of the people will be impossible, decreasing the quality of life even if it's less violent. Lastly, in the case of Pain, he is convinced by Naruto's speech and his restraint. Naruto tries to show him the flaw of his view on the state of nature being war. Naruto, despite being enraged by Pain killing his teacher Jiraiya, chooses to spare Nagato to make his point. This counterexample made Nagato question his beliefs. Naruto also exclaims that he will not give up nor change his ways. It is possible that Naruto acts this way due to being similar to Immanuel Kant in his ethics. He acts in accordance with a particular maxim because he believes that there exists a principle that is logically moral. Another way to look at Naruto is as the opposite of Kant. Kant condemns acting for any intention other than because the principle is correct. It's arguable that Naruto is just emotional and acts because doing this makes him feel moral or good, which makes the action selfishly based. These are just two ways of viewing Naruto's moral stance. In my opinion, Naruto's assertion that he will never change, be corrupted, or submit to anger and hatred is the same arrogance I talked about in the Itachi section. It is naive to think that you are entirely resistant to the appeal of engaging in negative emotion, especially when Naruto is the one who previously went berserk when in his Four Tails version 2 state when he mortally wounded Jiraiya. He's not really in any position to make these claims. Anyways, this display that Nagato assumed to be impossible, Naruto not taking revenge, was enough to convince him that his view on the state of nature is either not all-encompassing or has outliers that can help change everyone else. This has been the second video on my channel. As I'm new to this, there may be minor inaccuracies that I haven't caught, so please feel free to point at anything you have a problem with, whether you think it's blatantly wrong or if you have a different opinion in the comments below. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also hit the notification button to get all of my videos recommended to you. Remember to share this with all your friends that are into anime, philosophy, or both. Thank you and have a great day. This has been Arcmoon. See you later.